Hi, it's Swen and Cody, and we're in San Francisco to talk about one of the most surprising things we've found recently, which is that San Francisco seems to be turning the corner. And I think we should start with showing you where we are, because it's an extraordinary place that we've found. I didn't even know this thing existed.
So we are 50 feet off the ground level in a park. We're in Salesforce Park. This is a $2 billion park. I don't know if we should brag about the efficiency of what this costs, but it's pretty impressive here.
Yep.
And right behind us is Salesforce Tower. Now, most people in the tech industry know about Salesforce. It's a major company, and that's the Salesforce Tower behind us. And then I think they own several other buildings around here. And then there's a park here, and this park is elevated above the street level, and it's 5.4 acres, and you can walk around, and we're gonna walk around in a second. But this is, I think, one of those things in San Francisco you just don't really know about.
And it's currently the end of January. I am wearing a scarf, but I'm slightly overdressed. I left the hotel pretty early, so it was a bit chilly, but the weather here is great. I mean, the climate in San Francisco, if you come from Europe, this is good.
And I'm originally from California, from Los Angeles. I left California. I live in Florida now for obvious reasons. And I have all of the right to critique this city. Being an Angelino, it's kind of like your arch nemesis of the Bay Area. But I will still say San Francisco is an incredible city. It's geographically located in one of the most incredible areas, meaning on the west coast of the US, with one of the world's best natural harbors. You have Silicon Valley, you have universities around here, you have Stanford, Berkeley, Palo Alto. You have all kinds of interesting things going on around the city. So the long-term value and growth of this region is certain in my mind. Even though I'm the most critical of this place, it's certain in my mind that this will be a long-term successful place.
And what triggered us wanting to do this video was that I arrived here being somewhat hesitant to even come here in the first place. The last time I went to San Francisco was, I think, in January 2020, and it was an absolute shithole.
I wrote an article about it. I called about how it reeked of urine everywhere. There was human feces all over the place. There was crime. People were yelling at me for not wearing a mask, even though I was hiking on a remote trail somewhere. Put your mask on. It was just the most unbearable city. We'll walk while we'll talk right now. But I will say right now, again, I'm the first to critique this city right now. I gotta say, it's cleaned up. It's pretty nice here. And it might be a kind of a hidden gem for people that want to get in on something that's gonna have a roaring comeback right now.
Yeah, and after 24 hours of being here a couple of days ago, I sent you a text message saying, this is cleaner than New York. And I mean, admittedly, it doesn't take much, but I was so surprised. I was preparing for the worst, and they've really cleaned it up. In the meantime, I've spoken to a couple of locals, and they've told me that really this started 2 years ago because people were just getting absolutely sick and tired of it. San Francisco obviously was the city that became infamous for having the poop app, where people could use an app to tell the authorities where the latest incident of human poop in public areas had occurred, and that just summarized everything that was wrong about the city. And now you walk around, yes, there is still a homeless problem to a certain extent, and I haven't been to the worst affected area yet, but I would say in the parts that I went to, which is Union Square, which is really the most famous place, and Market Street, homelessness there is not any worse than London. If not even better, and that's a shocking realization. And otherwise, the place is clean. There's a good vibe here.
Yep.
It seems that there is a new wave of innovation coming. That's AI, it's defense tech,
Yep.
which is surprising and not surprising. And due to the ecosystem that you've got here for startups, the capital, the venture capital firms, the know-how, the mafias, like the PayPal mafia
Yep.
and various other mafias. This is a place where wealth will continue to be created, large amounts, and if you are a young, childless person, this is probably one of the places you want to consider to come and make a lot of money.
Absolutely. And we hosted dinner a couple nights ago, and we had several guests that were on the younger side, let's say in their 20s. They are engineers for major tech companies in the area. And what's wild is how much these kids in their 20s are making. It's unbelievable. believable. And that's a 20-year-olds. So you have this portion of the population here making an obscene amount of money. And what are they spending it on? Well, of course, they're spending it on the local economy, but they're actually saving a lot of money as well. And this is, I would say, dry capital that's ready to invest in other startups to do business together. And if you're young or somebody who's looking for a community of forward-looking people, I think this is going to be a location that for a long time, but especially right now, would be a pretty bullish opportunity for someone to come here and spend some time and get immersed in the community here.
And this is really where we should start speaking about real estate. And this whole video comes with a big disclaimer. We've not done deep research on this subject matter. We've just spent a couple of days here. But we both have a bit of an instinct, I think, for stuff, and we have a lot of experience. And some of the shocking statistics about the real estate market are that San Francisco is the only city among the 100 largest cities in the United States where real estate prices are still lower than they were in 2019.
So 2018 till now, the real estate is basically flat. It peaked in between during the whole pandemic. That's when rates went down and real estate went crazy. But San Francisco's prices actually declined significantly over the past couple of years. So the prices today for homes and condos in San Francisco are almost identical to 2018. And that's not inflation adjusted. And of course, there's all kinds of other things to consider, like mortgage rates and inflation, all that. But it's pretty notable that this is, again, arguably a leading city for technology development and a hive for intelligence. And real estate is the same as 6-7 years ago. That's incredible.
And even when you look at it in absolute numbers, I mean, you told me that statistic about what's the median house price here now?
So the median house price in the very beginning of 2025 is $1.4 million. This is per Zillow, and a condo is $1 million. So blended out, their average real estate throughout the city is at $1.2 million for a single family dwelling.
Which isn't really that much in absolute numbers, given how much value the dollar has lost in these years of inflation and compared to how prices have developed in the rest of the country. Saying all that, another disclaimer, San Francisco is not a real estate market, it's lots of smaller markets.
Yep.
And then you've got individual buildings, like you've got that famous case of a building that's like a high-rise building that started to sink, I think.
Well, that's the Salesforce Tower that's right here.
Oh, it's that one.
Yeah. Let's hope it doesn't fall on us.
And
you've got other examples like the Ritz-Carlton building. You had units selling for record lows, literally less than 2005 prices, but that was because they had some HOA issues. But the point is, generally speaking, I think what you're getting at is that the real estate prices here for a tier 1 city that's likely on the uptick are surprisingly inexpensive, especially if you compare to, say, a Hong Kong or Singapore or London, internationally ranked cities. It's arguably a lot cheaper than a lot of those places.
Yeah, and another shocking statistic is that right now 35% of the office real estate is empty. I have to say it does feel a bit empty when you walk around the financial district, which is where I'm based right now. And at the same time, when I read headlines or articles about transactions such as a pretty famous historical building here has just changed hands with a 60% discount to sort of like where it came from 5 or 6 years ago, that's when you think that surely there has to be a bottom here somewhere.
Yep.
And American cities in particular are very good at regenerating and relaunching themselves with a new spiel. And I mean, surely San Francisco will be able to pull this off.
Absolutely. I mean, I think as an investor, we have this fountain here next to us, so hope we don't get wet. We've got this thing going on in the US with cyclical markets. I think all investors understand the cyclicality of markets, and I think that's especially true in many parts of the US, which is one ideal swings to one direction and then it swings the other way. And California is this perfect example. I think the best thing to point to right now is what's happening in Los Angeles with the wildfires. It seems that building codes and regulations are likely to drastically change because they've gone too far. And I would argue that San Francisco is probably going to have some of those changes coming soon because it's gone too far.
Yeah.
And the investment opportunity right now, of course, in single family real estate here in San Francisco is probably pretty interesting. 20 years from now, I can make a strong argument that things will be just fine here. But commercial real estate, I think is pretty interesting too. Like, how much lower could it go?
Yeah, and there are a lot of publicly listed REITs that give you, well, not a lot, but like half a dozen, that give you exposure to this opportunity. They all have their own set of flaws, and I'd say still they're worth taking another look at now, because I think this changing perception that we've just experienced,
Yep.
I think that will appear in the media before too long, also because of politics. And I mean, everything nowadays is to some extent driven and or influenced by politics. And you just mentioned the word common sense in building regulation. So San Francisco has a new mayor who is also a non-politician. He is an heir of the Levi's family. And he lives here, and he just thought, my home city is going to the dogs. Someone's got to do something. And the politicians are obviously, they haven't been capable of getting anything done. So he won the last election for mayor, and he's been in office for 3 weeks now. He won with a 10-point lead. So this was another political revolution of sorts. And his program is very much one of, he says, you know, I'm not about politics, I'm not a politician, I want common sense to be put back into as the modus operandus. And interestingly enough, his transition team, the chairman, is Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. And that tells you, I mean, who's in charge here. It's business is in charge, entrepreneurs, and they want to see San Francisco go back to its former glory.
Yeah, and to be fair, to state some things that maybe listeners are thinking of, is that there have been a lot of companies that have left San Francisco in this area. Tesla is an obvious one. You have the parts of Meta that have announced they're going to move to Texas. And there has been an exodus from this city. But I would argue that the majority of the actual, like on the ground people, engineers, the entrepreneurs, the VCs, the people who are immigrants coming to the US who are on their visas for tech or whatever, they're still coming here. Like there's still a huge mind hive here.
And possibly in larger numbers again. So I have this theory that the US is going to suck in talent like never before, with immigration now going back to being merit-based going forward in some shape or form, because every sane person in the world is in favor of merit-based immigration, and especially in the United States. And the desperation and the exasperation with politics in Europe, where good people just say, I've got to go somewhere else. And you know, where could that be? Not everyone wants to go to Asia.
Yep.
For all sorts of reasons. It's also not easy to integrate yourself into Asian society if you're from the West. And then the United States is the obvious place to go to. And this is a very European city, besides maybe Boston.
Yeah,
and
there's history here in relative terms compared to the rest of the U.S. and especially California. This has got architecture here. We were walking through one of the pier warehouses earlier, and I was commenting on the roof line, the ceiling. Like, wow, there's architecture here. You thought it was normal because that's what's in Europe, but when you're in a city like that, it's inspiring. It's nice to be around places that have some history and some context and some. I guess grit to it as well. It makes you feel like you're in a real city.
And add to it the climate.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, just show the sky here. This is a day in January when many other parts of the US have just got the worst ever cold spell.
Yeah, and real quickly on the climate, I'll mention what's going on here. San Francisco is completely surrounded by water, most notably the Pacific Ocean, and the temperature of the Pacific Ocean creates this environment here that's temperate, meaning there's not wild temperature swings. So that means in the summer it doesn't get really that hot, but in the winter it doesn't really ever get that cold. And it creates this environment here that is just very livable, and it's very enjoyable, and it's beautiful. And that's one of those long-term 20-year, 30-year down the road type things that's not going to change. And that's going to make this city very, very valuable for a very long time to go. So even though we're going through maybe a low point, I don't know if we're coming out of that low point right now for the city. The next high point is going to be very high for here.
But let's also be clear, things do take a while to turn around.
Yes.
And if you've got 36% empty office real estate, that takes a while for the market to be absorbed. And the new mayor will have his work cut out, and there's a lot of competition in the United States. It's not like San Francisco is the only city trying to attract the best and brightest. But give it 5 years and then look at it from a 10 and 20 year perspective. I'd say this is probably a no-brainer. And cities of that kind, San Francisco being one of the probably 20 cities in the world that just has this status as a forever success story
Yep.
with blips somewhere along the way. These cities don't often experience such a crisis, and the kind of discounts you're getting on real estate here is the sort of thing that reminds me of like New York pre-Giuliani in the 90s.
Yeah, maybe this is a buy in the when there's blood in the streets scenario. I actually don't think there's like it's not real blood in the streets.
Poop in the streets.
Poop in the streets. That's right. Buy when there's poop in the streets. That's a quote.
That's the headline for the video.
Wow, that's
You'll get shadow banned, but that's.
I don't know. It might be like a great searchability too. But I would mention also that even if you're, I don't know, maybe you're not into investing, or obviously you're into investing if you're watching this, but if you have family members who are not into investing or business, it's a great excuse to come here because tremendous tourism around here in the area. It's beautiful. So you can hit a couple birds with one stone, make an excuse to come to San Francisco with your family to see everything beautiful, and you can go try and get involved in some tech deals or investment opportunities.
Yeah, and I mean, on a probably closing note, I have to say I came here only for 3 days because I thought I'm not going to be able to stand the misery of San Francisco for more than 3 days, and I'd be glad to get out of here. I'm sad to be flying back home tonight. I would have loved to stay longer, and I need to come back.
Yeah, I'll give a parting message too. I'm big into food and restaurants, and I've hit over the past several nights some of the better rated restaurants. They have all been jam-packed. The food scene is coming back to San Francisco. Because a lot of them closed down during the pandemic. A lot of restaurants never came back, but there's lots of new stuff opening around here. And I would say restaurants and that food scene is typically a bellwether of any type of city, understanding its health. Famously, Hong Kong has had a great food scene, London, and San Francisco is another one of those great cities. So great food scene here. Maybe it's a sign that things are coming back. So Swen and I found ourselves in a gondola, a San Francisco gondola. This is a little bit creepy, actually. Got a little bit of the heebie-jeebies.
I'm so afraid of heights. I thought this is an elevator, and it turns out this is a bloody gondola.
Anyway, another reason to come to San Francisco is ride the gondola. And this is coming from the park that was up there. And then we're going down to the street.
The old stuff's always coming back. Gondolas are terribly old-fashioned, and now it's an innovation again. Everything comes back.
Just like I said, everything's cyclical, right? Even gondolas.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys.